Hey guys, welcome back to another YouTube video, and today we're going to go ahead and talk about the August 2024 Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list. It is late to arrive here probably in the next week or so, right before the next Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament and right before the next YCS, and we're just going to want to just talk about it, just kind of like, final thoughts on like what it looks like and what can possibly be, because to be perfectly honest with you, the 2024 ban list is the August 2024 ban list is definitely going to be a really big one, or at least it needs to be one that shakes up things a little bit more because we've been dealing with the Snake Eye and the fire meta since pretty much egg off, honestly. And then after Phantom Nightmare came out with the Bell stuff, and then Poplar, Bonfire, and the side set, and everything's has been a little bit boring. And I really hope that we can push things a little bit further and just kind of change things up a little bit. These are gonna be my thoughts. Although I haven't played in person since April-ish, but I definitely played a lot against the deck. Been playing testing, and especially for the next format, especially the info formats. Been playing a lot of that online, and been kind of seeing a lot of like the same consistencies. Because realistically speaking, we're kind of all in the same spot right now. It's just like we're kind of bored of playing against the fire meta, and we kind of want to see a really big change. But even after we like say we knock down, the Snake Eye deck a peg or two, it still doesn't change everything because then we have to deal with Ubel right after that, and then we have to deal with this after that. Then we have to deal, the second, third, fourth best decks are still, I think, overall at a higher power level and or incredibly degenerate, which kind of sucks. So you kind of want to see like what's the best way to kind of take some of these things out to kind of make a more fun, healthy format because we have seen that modern formats can be very fun, very healthy. We saw the AGOF format when right at around the time that Arise Heart was it, like it was that format was really fun. Like Tearlament starts showing back up, and Chain was really good. Labyrinth is still really good. You have a lot of fight diversity in the cards without decks going too degenerate. And so we're just gonna go ahead and start talking about a few cards that I think that should be banned and things that should be changed so we can kind of shape things well. So starting up, I want to go ahead and talk about one that has been put in contention for a little bit now, and that is Appaloosa. Got it to the bow. I personally think Appaloosa should be banned. Appaloosa, since her debut in 2019, has been a card that has always varied in strength. Like I remember, like people didn't really play her too much initially, but then after a while, when decks start becoming more combo oriented during Master Rule 4, like the cards start getting a lot more powerful, and this has been a mainstay of quite a lot of combo decks since 2019. And we got to the point where its contemporaries, both Borlo Savage Dragon, as well as Baron the Floor, have been banned on the previous ban list due to the fact that generic Omni Negates, and being generic Endboard pieces have shown that Konami want to kind of push away from that type of card design, as we've seen with with like say feats with Desert Ray, for instance, where it's not an Omni Negate, but it's more like a Hot Red Dragon Archery and Abyss, where it targets and negates, which allows for different type of levels of interaction. We saw with new Blue Eyes level 12 Synchro Monster. We started to see like Konami changing up the boss monster criteria a little bit, and Appaloosa, another card of the bygone era, it just kind of needs to go away. It was just reprinted in Rarity Collection 2, got like 7 different rarities. So, but I definitely feel like this may be the time for it to go. I don't really care to see this card anymore. It's just been kind of getting annoying. Every combo deck lands on it. You make bodies, especially now with the Fiendsmith engine being out. You don't want this to be just like, oh yeah, I just, poop out a bunch of monsters and oh, here's my format Appaloosa. We don't want this anymore. It's been coming too annoying of a card. It's just kind of toxic now, and it's occupying a space I don't really like. But yeah, I definitely think Apple should 100% be banned. Next up on the chopping block, Beatrice. Jesus Christ, why is this card still here? As a Taylorman player, I love Beatrice, but I also hate Beatrice because once again, when the Bystials show up, you have a bunch of level 6 monsters that do With the Bestials, you have level 6 monsters that attack light and dark monsters out of the grave. You have a level 6. Then you had also the TCG exclusive Garura. You have a level 6. This card, Foolish Burials any card out of your deck. Lavalval Chain is banned. Foolish Burial's at 1. And then also, what was it? Foolish Burial Goods is also a hard once per turn for a very specific reason. It's too good to just be able to send any card from your deck as a quick effect on top of that with fully generic material. Beatrice has been limited for too long, and it just needs to go away. Now we have a level 6 engine that just does it, and it's like, oh, Beatrice is like you have an option to go into level 6 Beatrice, which Beatrice just sends any card you need. It's a starter, it's an extender. It does too much. Extra deck utility cards like this are just too powerful to remain in the game. I mean, I know, the Fiendsmith engine is extremely expensive. What Fiendsmith engravers are like $100 or $110 or something insane like that. Most of it's pretty cheap, but either way, we have to get rid of this. There's no reason for Lavalval Chain 2.0 to still be around when the other one's banned. This is just nah. We need to get rid of this. Get rid of this. I know, as I said, I'm a Tearlament player. So I've been playing Tearlament since 2022, since Vote format. I love this card, but also hate this card and everything that has become. It's just too good. We don't need this anymore. Just get rid of it. We don't need every deck being able to go into Beatrice to dump a floodgate, to dump, I think it was like Angels of Blue Tears or whatever, to dump all this stupid crap, to bring it back and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, like it's free for everyone and everything. Like we don't need that. That's just no go there. Next up on the list, we have another card that is just so toxic, and that is Sanctify. I'll be on the Sanctifier Dragon. I don't like this card because once again, they literally banned Brandon Banishment for doing the exact same thing as this, where it just brings out two monsters, it doesn't negate their effects, and but it also has the added bonus, it can't be targeted. So, holding the imperm for your turn, you can't do anything. It can't be targeted, and then it just, you get puppet lock, and puppet lock is more or less a symptom of the format, where the Snake Eyes deck that's just super powerful. It's just incredibly powerful, and then Branded has just always been very consistent because it's been getting tons of support over the years. Sanctifier though, well, if it negated what is summoned back, I wouldn't have too much of an issue with it. But due to the fact that it doesn't do that, I think it's a really cool fusion monster. But at the same time, the things that it enabled, Puppet, the Puppet lock with the Gimmick Puppet, which I know I have here somewhere, yeah, right here. And it's just like some people were saying like, oh, we should just ban Ido, ban the Puppet lock. But it's just like the fact that people are just gonna go ahead and find new ways to lock you. We don't want to go the Hulk route where oh yeah, we just need to ban all the tuners. Stop. It has to stop somewhere, and we have to ban. I feel like the banning of Sanctifier is fine. Branded has been one of the not even, yeah, one of the best decks since the structure deck Albert Strike came out in like 2022 of April. It has been so good for so long that it's just like if you've been playing it since 2022, you could have pretty much sold that deck and you would have done incredibly well. I feel like with getting rid of this card alone, it doesn't change the deck. Like the deck still has 3 branded fusion. The deck still have branded opening. It still has branded loss. It still have Albion. Or not Albion. It still has Aluber. You still have so many different methods to get to what you need. Why the heck do we really need the fact of keeping this around? There's no point of keeping this around anymore. Just to puppet lock people, like one of the YCs that just passed, or was it the NAWCQ, where you just like see Pac and his opponent puppet locking each other on stream. It's just like, that's not fun. That's not fun for anyone. It shouldn't just come down to, oh yeah, I went first, I burned a fusion, you had nothing to stop me, here's a puppet, and good luck on trying to do anything. Unless you're playing Gimmick Puppet, which then you just FTK your opponent, which would be hilarious, but it's just not interesting, right? It's just not fun. Also, speaking of which, I do have the Puppet here. I don't believe Puppet should be banned. Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, just because it's like, we get rid of this just does nothing to really do anything to anybody except for Gimmick Puppet players, which I don't even know they even really play this, but it is what it is. I don't like this. Get rid of it. Sanctifier, out of here. Next up, calamities. Once again, we're coming back to a point where I know people saying like, oh, Centurion White Witch just came out, or the White Witch card just came out. Centurion's getting more support, but it's like they already make Blazer, they can make level 12s, and I just don't see the need to where a turd skip helps a deck. I can understand where it's like if it's like some type of utility or anything, but it literally just exists to do one thing and one thing alone. Crimson Dragon, target a level 12, bring this guy out. Hey, congratulations, you can't activate anything on the field, and you're now severely crippled from playing the game, unless you're playing like a back row heavy deck. And that isn't exactly healthy. And what I mean healthy is like, sometimes, we have some unhealthy cards what I'm going to get to in a second. But this is just stupid. This is really just stupid. Like, why do we need this body here? It's like, it doesn't even, like, that's the crazy part about it. If you get rid of it, it affects nothing outside of people being able to turn skip you. And I'm gonna say we're getting rid of Sanctifier, we're getting rid of Apple, we're getting rid of these very toxic type of cards. This should be there with it. There's no reason why this needs to be here. And it's like, I know we're getting more Centurion, but it's like, why do we have to sit there, make Centurion just a turn skip deck, or give the ability just to turn skip just because we should? It's like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't like this design, these type of design cards. We already got rid of, the other true king of all calamities. We already got rid of Azathoth. There's so many like turn skip type decks that we just kind of don't really need around, and I don't see a point of this. This is garbage. It's just garbage design. At one point it wasn't really designed to be summoned, or I don't even know. I don't think I've even seen it summoned before Crimson Dragon came out, which I was playing it for Vanadium, but then I realized like God, that feels awful to play Vanadium, and it's like it's just funny for the first few times, and afterwards it's just like kind of garbage. But yeah, we don't need this. It's just another really stupid synchro monster that has a really stupid effect, and we don't need it because if you're not unprepared, but if you have no way to stop the Crimson Dragon from summoning this thing out, then we just kind of end up in a really bad spot, and it's just not fun. It's just not interesting. Next up, so this is going to be, some people have been saying like, hey, what do we hit for Snake Eyes? Do we ban the Flamberge? Do we blame OSS? What do we do? And in my honest opinion, I'm fully on board for banning Flamberge. I feel like Flamberge Dragon is such a great card. It is so good. And I feel like people say like, limit this, ban OSS, ban Oak. But I feel like when it comes to generating mass, what's the word I'm looking for? Mass advantage, and bodies, it's just this just does everything. It's a disruption. It's the boss monster of Snake Eyes for a very good reason. It is very strong. It pushes things to the back row. It summons things out it's one of the other cards that summon things out the back row. When it's sent to the graveyard, it's summoned back 2 bodies, which then make you go plus on your opponent's turn, especially with IP Masquerena. That's really, really powerful, and you just do so much with it. It's just such a powerful, flexible card that just does too much. And we've been dealing with what we've been dealing with Snake Eyes since February, and it has just not in this like anytime you see Flamberge, some people have cut it down to 1, some people still play it at 2, but then it's like putting this to 1, you would have to ban something else. But I feel like if we, I don't really like getting rid of decks in its entirety. I feel like Flamberge just hits the deck in a way that you can still play all the other fire stuff, but but pure Snake Eyes just not be a thing anymore. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm sick of the whole, oh yeah, let's play, like 21 hand traps and like a nice little condensed one card starter engine that leads down to a rabbit hole where it's just like, oh, that's cool, you rogue my board. Anyway, Flamberge, special summons 2, if you don't kill me now, I can kill you in the next turn. Flamberge is also like, it's 2 disruptions 1. You bring it back, you can really just spell and trap another card, or you can bring a card back from spell and trap. So that is so good. It is so powerful. I know some people don't agree with this, with the banning of Flamberge, but I feel like with how long we had to deal with the deck, especially after what they did to Tear Limit, I think lasted what, tier 0 tier was from like October or September to February when Photon Hypernova came out, and they massacred that deck. Still an incredibly good, still a pretty good deck though. Kind of funny to think about it later on, but Rise Tower kept that in check for a long time. But we don't really have anything keeping it here, so I feel like Flamberger should be the thing that got banned. We leave OSS, we leave the one to engine alone. Um, but yeah, I feel like that's kind of what we do at this point. We kind of keep this power locked up at bay. Finito. Done with this. And is there anything else that I wanted to ban? Now there is D Shifter, which I would love to see get banned. I would love to see this card get banned, but there's a huge but in this. I kind of understand the argument of why people want this to get banned, but I can't. I would love to see it get banned myself, but I know that we kind of have to keep this card at a limit. I don't think it should exist in three. One, I think, is fine for right now because I understand that there is a huge, huge influx of graveyard-based decks that just do everything. Like, the whole joke about the graveyard being the second hand type thing, but it is very, very powerful. It's a very powerful hand trap. Lingering Floodgates, I don't like Lingering Floodgates whatsoever, especially when it's powerful as sending cards to banishment. I do know the Malice archetype is, the Alice in Wonderland archetype coming from Crossover Breakers is definitely going to take advantage of this. So I also want to see like what it does later on, but I definitely feel like this card is 100% ban worthy. But knowing Konami, they're not going to ban it, but keep it around. But I don't think it needs to remain at 3. It was kind of like my problem with Mystic Mine for so long, where Mystic Mine being a multiples had caused a lot of problems, and let's be honest, it helped decks win games that they had no business ever winning. Um, but yeah, it's just like one of those cards I would love to see banned, but I personally think it should be limited. But also another card that I could see potentially getting banned, or at least I think that should get banned, is Abyss Dweller. Dweller is a card that has existed for too long, and it does nothing but it's an easy to make rank 4 card that just says shut off the graveyard. And once again, the graveyard hate again. It was like that one. It was like one of the few blemishes that was on tier format was this card. And then when standard time there's like a graveyard centric deck or a deck that wants to use the graveyard and is like you can make 2 level 4s, like bam, here we are, Dweller. I was like, I don't like that type of mentality, headspace, and game plan. It sucks. I hate it. 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 It's awful. With that being said, I wish they would just straight up ban this card. This should have been banned after tier format. It should have been banned back in like 2015. It should just been banned after like Unchained format. Just something. Just get rid of this garbage. It's awful. I hate this card. I hate this card a lot because once again, extra deck floodgates. I'm sick of seeing them. We don't need them. Continuing on, this card right here. So, IP Masquerena. This one's kind of interesting because once again, you only are playing in ones. So limiting this card does nothing. So you either have to play this at 3, keep this at 3, or you ban it. I think this card somewhat becomes ban worthy. However, with Appaloosa, Flamberge kind of being banned, it may not be there anymore. But I feel like as far as like generic level 2s go, this one, Link 2s go, this one is definitely the best. It's one of the best. Because you still have this into IP, this into something else, I mean, I know people used to do like this into like Avermax, but that's just kind of it's kind of a joke at that point because it's like you have too many ways to out Avermax, but it's just like a card that I feel like the longer it stays around, the more problems it causes. And it's like once it gets combined with things like Flameburge, things like Appaloosa, it's just like you have a very strong card. However, I can see it not getting banned. I don't think it will get banned. Personally, it's probably gonna be a no change, but I can definitely see if it gets banned, it would not surprise me. Let's put it like that. It would not surprise me if this gets banned. So next up, so honestly, I think that is it for the bannings, the cards that I would like to ban. And next up, we're going to cards that I think should be limited. Starting with Runic Fountain and Runic. Where are you? Tip. I know I saw it somewhere because there's cross out. Am I blind? Oh, oh, wait. I'll find it eventually. But let's put it like this: Runic, Fountain, Rune Tip. I do not like Runic at all. I'm not a big fan of Runic. It's one of those decks where it's just like, it's highly splashable. You pay like 17 Runic cards, and then you put in your other sub engine with it. I don't, and it's like typically I won't have problems with like very splashable engines until something kind of arises out of it that kind of hurts a lot. And that is, the uptick of Runic Stun, as well as just like what Runic does in general. Runic Stun has proven itself to be highly competent in both the OCG and the TCG, especially more so in the TCG coming, or more so in the OCG, but the TCG has been picking up on it quite a lot frequently, and I'm just like, I don't like this. I don't like the idea of like something like this just continuously getting uptick because it's just like it's really good. Runic, because the Runic cards, while they require you to target monsters, and if you have something untargetable, they kind of lose their game plan for the most part, sort of. But it's like, hey, we target something, we resolve our effects. Outside of like the effect of special summon, which like you have like 17 copies of instant fusion, to constantly get out, the Hugin. The Hugin recycles itself. You got Jerry, you got the other runic monsters that you don't really see in the main in like regular builds and combo builds compared to that of the thing build, the stun build. And Runic has gone to the point where I'm just like I don't like what it does because once again, back in what January, they banned Agito and Kelbeck because once again, milling 10 and milling cards from both players' decks is very strong, and Konami deemed that unhealthy. However, you have Runic, which does that in a sense where it instead of milling cards to the grave, it banishes cards. And I know people always want to say like, oh, just play more spell and trap removal. And it's like, yeah, I get that, but then it's just like, if I try to play into a runic board with a runic fountain already established without a way to, without a way to like get rid of it, I'm then playing a game where it's just like, pray to God they do not banish my outs to this cards. Pray to God they don't banish my cosmic cyclones, or something, some way to get rid of it. This is kind of not fun to deal with. It's not fun to deal with at all. And I know some people may be saying like, oh, Runic helps X deck, and it's like, yeah, I understand that it does help certain decks, but then once again, when you have a splash split, but then again, like the other half of it's kind of degenerate. It banishes cards from the top of your opponent's deck, so once again, you're interacting with not my hand, not my field, but my field, my deck, sometimes my hand, and you're banishing. Most decks have a hard time dealing with cards being banished if not you're never going to see it again. And the same thing with Tip. Tip just being able to search out everything and then banish a card off your top of their deck when you search for something is kind of silly to me. And on top of that, the fountain, makes the quick plays live from hand on both players' turns, and then it just draws you 3 when you have it. And once again, the shufflers are at 1 each. So there's not a whole lot of ways to really deal with that. Once again, outside of just general spell trap removal. But I don't like the fact that it's like, oh, okay, so but then it's like Runic's not always the most popular deck. But then you also have to think about the fact that, oh, okay, so I have to somehow only have 15 cards on my side. I have to make sure I pack enough, spell and trap removal as well as removal to deal with Ubel, to deal with Snake Eyes, to deal with Fiendsmith. And it's just like, no, I don't like that. I really don't like the idea of like, oh, my opponent just keeps sitting there regenerating resources, recycling resources every single turn. To the point where the alternate win con of this is literally just decking me out. And it's like, I don't like alt win cons like that. It's just kind of stupid. I don't think this card should remain. I would love to ban Fountain, get rid of it altogether, but I'll be fair. I won't be too biased, but I think it should get a limit because the only thing Runic has ever took was Fountain to 2, which is kind of dumb. It's the ratio that most people played in. Next up for the limits, we got our shells. When the skill is drained, I'm gonna be very honest. This card had no business coming off the list from 1 to 3. This had no business coming off back to 3. It was a weird decision. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure how many people actually sat there and was just like, "Oh yeah, this was perfectly fine. This made perfect sense." It's like, and when it happened, it was just kind of like, why did they release Squadron 3? Although it didn't do anything for too long. We're now coming back to a point where, because of Snake Eyes, you can kind of turn off your own skill drain, which we see anytime you're able to turn off a floodgate at will, it leads to some very unfun, degenerate gameplay styles. Because like once again, it's like we saw the things with vanities. We saw the same thing, which is very hyper powerful, either spell negations of special summoning negations, skill drain just being just not fun to deal with. It's just like, once again, you flip it. If you don't have an out for it, you just kind of sit there. Your opponent just puts up big bodies. They flip skill drain on you, and they're like, "Oh, have fun with it. Good luck." And you're just like, "Oh, this is just not fun at all. This is horrible. This feels awful." Um, it's a card that I feel like it should be banned. Like, I honestly didn't have the other floodgates here just because it's like, personally, I'll just ban all of them. But you can't ban every floodgate because everyone's going to look for the next floodgate available to them, which I kind of hate that mentality, but it is a mentality that will precede Yu-Gi-Oh! It's like, people are going to find floodgates because, once again, you have your meta decks, you have your combo decks, you have your mid-range decks, but you always have stun decks because there's going to be some people who just want to watch the world burn. But I don't think this card should remain at anything more than 1 or 0. It shouldn't be at 3. I don't. The less floodgates we have, the less stun decks we're probably going to see. I don't like it. It's not fun to deal with. Next up on the list, I have Sengun Summoning. um, with with how things currently look on this list, Sengun Summoning has to go to 1. I really feel like Tenpai Dragon is, and no Tenpai players take offense to this, but is very much a glue eater deck. It is very much a rubber cement, I'm eating rubber cement type of deck. It kills you so efficiently. It's like battle phase. I have nothing to stop the battle phase. I'm probably going to get ran over by like 35,000 damage. Once a deck can OTK you through prosperity, there is a problem with that. Especially like when you have your one card sub. They just got Genroku in info. This card is really really strong. And I just don't like the fact that this card just says in the main phase, during my main phase, you cannot interact with my dragons at all until the battle phase, which then some instances they can make the level 10 that makes unable to actually sit there and activate anything in the battle phase. And it's like, gee willikers, mister, that's just dandy. That's just so much fun. And it's just like, no, it's not. This is awful. This is terrible card design. And it's like, I understand the reasoning for it is because going second has been a point of contention for a while, where it was just really hard to go second in Yu-Gi-Oh for a while. And if you go first, it's like, oh, I go first, I win on the spot. Go game 2, my opponent, I hand trap my hell out of my opponent. They can't do anything. I won on the spot. There's the powers of one card comboing has gotten way out of hand lately. And it's like, if your deck does not have a good one card combo, you need something to compensate with it, which is why cards like Albion just sits there and had to continue to exist to puppet lock you, because it's like, oh, I don't have the strongest one card starter, or I lose hard to hand traps, but by the way, if I don't though, I'm going to puppet you. It's like, or I'm going to calamities you, or I'm going to do something to prevent you from playing shifter you, something, Sengun Summoning just reading just so stupidly, just unable to do anything. It's a very powerful field spell. It does not need to be any multiples. I think it was a common. We just limit it. Tenpai can still play. They're not losing any of their main deck pieces outside of this. They can still play. They just see it less consistently, meaning that you have more of a bit of a fighting chance. So you're just not getting absolutely steamrolled. So next up, another card that I'd like to see limited would be, where are you? Crossout Designator. Crossout is a card where initially, not a lot of people were playing it. It was a very, pretty common side deck option for what I've seen. It's been pretty normal side deck. But lately, especially during this format, the Snake Eyes format, this card has proven itself to be the absolute MVP of oh, you just hit a floodgate, or you're trying to nib me, bam, flip cross out, banish nib, negate your nib, and then I just kill you for it. And then also I could just talents you or thrust you immediately, pause, but immediately afterwards. And it's so good. It is such a good card that it's a non once per turn quick effect that allows me to disrupt, to allow me to protect, insulate myself, but also disrupt you on your turn. That's really powerful because you can cross out. You can cross out anything that's in your deck that your opponent shares, which in this case, the 21 hand traps, or in this case, in mirror matches, it's insane. Like when we saw the when that Snake Eyes player who ended up winning that once that YCS, he crossed out skill drain and then won the game, and then pretty much that saved him. That saved him from winning the game, and it's just like Card's too good. Card's very good. It's an easy tech. It's an easy side deck option. I don't think it needs to remain at 3 anymore. We've kind of seen what it's able to do, but I can see it not going anywhere yet. Not yet, especially with the new Molcharmy card coming out in Raging on the Rage of the Abyss. Seems like, oh god, I'm not ready for that either. I'm not ready for the second coming of Maxi, but I definitely think this card should be limited after its very powerful showing um, in this current metagame. And then next on the list, we got Pot of Prosperity. It is by far one of the most powerful pot cards that Konami has printed. Being able to dig 6 deep into your deck and choose what you want has shown us that that is an insane consistency booster to decks that have poor consistency. Now it's like, do we really want to hurt those decks that have poor consistency? It's like, no, not really. But at the same time, it's not just those decks that can take advantage of it. It's any deck that's willing to sacrifice extra deck space and the ability not to draw. Because most decks nowadays don't even care about drawing too much. More so, they search out everything they need. I know like this was played earlier in earlier builds of the Fire King Snake Eyes deck, but they kind of went, but like Prayer Snake Eyes don't really mess with this because like, hey, we need our extra deck, and we just search everything. We have 3 Bonfire, we have Snake Eye Ash, we have the Popular, we have the Oak, we have everything. We search everything. We're special summon out of the deck. We don't care about this too much, but then it's just like other cards have just proven to be just way, 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 way too good. Prosperity is a very good card. Not even just a very good card, it's a fantastic card. I don't think it should really exist in a capacity more than 3 anymore. Like, having decks dig that deep into their deck to then dig for other things, it's just too strong for me. It's just way too strong for a consistency card. It's too strong. It shouldn't exist in, multiples. It should go to 1. Personally, I like to see it banned, but honestly, as of right now, 1 I think feels like it's appropriate. 1 is definitely appropriate. But not all gloom and doom. We're gonna go ahead and bring back some cards that I feel like they're long overdue. Zodiac Trident Barrage. I cannot for the life of me understand why Trident was banned the second time during the Tri Brigade format, when Tri Brigade Zoo was a really good deck. I don't understand this. I would never understand this. I think Trident's a good card, but is it so good? Is it so good that it sits there and robs everything? Like it's a strong card. I get it. Zoo's pretty good, but it's like, did we need to ban this? Like the power level of Zoo, I feel like have considerably fallen, especially in comparison of everything else, especially when they banned Barrage. Barrage ban caught me off guard. The limit of Barrage was already annoying to me in the beginning, but then banning Barrage, stupid. I feel like both Trident Barrage comes back, it does nothing. It doesn't really do anything to the game. It's not going to meta warp. It just gives us a little bit more choices to play, but it's not so good that it just breaks everything. It's not that good. It's not that good anymore. It's Raigeki break. It's Raigeki break, and it's just like, yeah, this is not super great anymore. Barrage could be as an extender, but then it's just like, he's like, cool, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. We can get these back. Speaking of which, Heavy Storm. I feel like this is definitely coming back to 1. We saw it in Master Duel. We saw it in OCG. We're next. This card needs to come back. Not needs to come back, but I think this card's fine to come back right now. It's like, we have Lightning Storm, we have Harpies at 1, just another sense of back row removal, because, everyone's always talking about, oh, just run more back row removal. Okay, cool. let's get another one. Let's get Heavy Storm. Now I know some people's like, oh, I remember a huge point was like people's like, oh, X deck can do this and do that if they open Heavy Storm plus their back row that searches. I'm like, okay, that's cute and all, but you do realize like I have to draw Heavy Storm plus back row. I need to go ahead, so I'm negging myself to maybe get something out of it. It's kind of silly. We're not in the olden days anymore. We're not like the 2010s to early 2000s. Like Heavy Storm, good, really good card, but I feel like it can come back without little to very much consequence at this point. I think it should definitely come back. It'd be fine to come back. And then also for another limit, Masterpiece. Why is this card still banned? The Bottle of Four Towers been legal for years. Masterpiece belongs to True Draco. It's just like True Draco does nothing in this form. This hasn't done anything since what 2019. After like it was just very powerful stun deck, but after that, after 2019, we lost what two demise. That deck lost two demise. It's just like Masterpiece, yes, is a strong card. It may not be the most fun card to play against, but then it's just like, what deck cannot out a Masterpiece? How much does a singular pop do? I understand people's like, well, you just pair it with Floodgates. So I'm like, we're limiting the Floodgates. Most of the Floodgates that we were playing were at 3, and on top of that, you're not really playing True Draco in this day and age. True Draco is just way too inconsistent, and it gets stopped hard. It gets stopped really hard just by, just very simply, it's like it doesn't generate the resources it did before. A lot of the cards that made True Draco really good are now either banned or limited. So it's like Masterpiece coming back as a one of, it's like that's cute and all, but it's just like, what is it really doing? Like we have things like Access Code that just blows through it. It's just like we have too many cards that just kill it right then and there. A singular pop doesn't do anything. We've seen this before. It's like nothing happens with it. It's a fine card to come back. I'm not afraid of Masterpiece whatsoever. Like this people overblow things a little bit too much sometimes. Card can come back, easy peasy. Next up, Electromite. I realize there's a lot of limits, but Electromite, once again, pendulums are garbage. What are we doing? What are we doing, Konami? What are we doing? Why are pendulums still being punished for no reason? I can't really understand. It's like I don't remember the last pendulum deck that actually did anything interesting. Since 2019, since the banning of Electromite, I really do not remember any like sole pendulum deck that has done anything interesting. I understand like people, they don't really want pendulum to become pendulum soup again, which trust me, I know. I remember playing against Pendulum Edition. The deck was very explosive. Or any deck that was really running Electromite and the pendulum monsters were super good. Like the Guard Dragon version of the deck, it was just very, very powerful. But it's just one of those things where it's like this card has been here for too long, and I don't know why. It's a strong card, yes, but is it the card that breaks the game? No, especially after the nerfing of the pendulum mechanic altogether. It's like we don't have pendulum representation. So if this is the card that gives people the chance to give some representation of some more decks, granted, especially with things like Apollousa, Baron, Savage being banned, we can probably get a little bit more interesting things going, because one of the biggest criticism of pendulum that you get was always the whole, oh yeah, by the way, it's like, oh, just vomit out a huge monster negate board, and that's what pendulums were kind of known for after a while. And it's like the main suspects over there, Apollousa, Baron, Savage, just there, and it's just like that's no longer an issue. If those are no longer an issue anymore, maybe people actually start playing something a little bit more interesting. I'm just saying. I think Electromite can come back, no problem. And then another one we got is Glow Bulb. Bulb was banned for a while because of Hulk. I don't really see a big deal of Bulb coming back at this point. Its effect is what, once per duel? I need to look this up because I'm pretty sure Glow Bulb is once per duel. Glow Bulb. Let me just double check this because I'm pretty sure. It's been a while since I've read it. Yeah, it's like if this card is in your graveyard, you can send the top card of your deck, and if you do special summon this card, you can only use the effect of Glow Bulb once per duel. In all honesty, it's a once per duel card. We have cards that mill once per turn. Like, Every Taylor, like the Taylor monsters, like Sharon, it's like you can use Sharon multiple times during over the course of multiple turns. You have Zombie Vampire. You have so many cards that doing things like, yes, I get it, it's a free body, but it's a once per duel type of thing. It's like, what are you so afraid of us making with the Nappies? Who cares? I could just summon Fenrir and kill the Nappies. It doesn't matter. This card, in the grand scheme of things, it's not level eater. It's not something so egregiously powerful we have to worry about it. I don't care. Now, next up, so this card right here, I feel like Snake Eye Ash should be limited, but with Flambridge being banned, I don't know if we should limit it or not, and that is kind of the weird part. I want to say we should limit it, but I don't know if that just brings down the power level of the fire of Snake Eyes too much. I mean, personally, I think if they ban Flambridge, it'll be at no change. That'll be my thought process. Same with Popular. I don't think they're hitting Poplar. I don't think they're hitting Snake Eye Ash. But I think Flambridge is the one that is going to take the blunt force. I feel like if they didn't, these two would be limited, and they probably ban Oak. But if they're not banning Oak or anything, I think this would be fine at 3. It's not really doing too much. It's a good starter. But without this backing everything up, I feel like we don't have to worry too much about it. And so this one is kind of a weird one. I can see them possibly bringing back circular into the game. Now I know some people may not be happy about the circular. I don't really care much for Mathmech at all. Like, the less out the Sealer deck, the better. But at the same time, I don't even understand why it was banned in the first place. Like, they banned circular before they banned some of the most egregious cards they have made. Like, I don't know why they banned circular. It was kind of a weird hit. But this I can see this coming back to 1. I can see this coming back to 1. I don't think it should go to anything more than 1 because it's a very powerful card, but I can see it maybe going to 1. But I think for the time being, it's probably going to stay no change. Same thing with SP. I know the OCG recently just limited this card. Not that I'm sure why they just didn't ban it if they felt like they needed to ban it. But the longer I play with SP, the more I feel fine with it. It's just like it's just good generic extra deck. But I don't think they're gonna limit it or semi-limit it or anything. I think it's gonna stay the same. Though, like last OCG ban list, it was like it was limited, but that does nothing. I don't think the OCG or the TCG is gonna sit there and just like make it go 3-1. It's kind of silly. Uh, I've heard some people talk about we should bring back a Rise Heart to 1. If we ban Shifter, we bring back a Rise Heart, and I'm just like, a Rise Heart is so I'm actually kind of mad about this one because it's like I love the art design for a Rise Heart so bad, but this card is just toxic. This card just needs to stay banned. Like, I'm sorry, but this needs to be staying banned. I also had this here for a small discussion. It's like, is this card fine to come back as a Link 2? But it's like, would Konami be willing to test the waters with Nightmare Goblin? It gives an extra normal summon, has like the left to right pointing arrows, it's a very powerful Link 2 discard outlet. I don't think we'll ever see this card again, but I feel like, if Konami ever going to experiment with something, I think maybe we can see that. That'd be kind of funny to see, but it'd be a funny thing to see. Next up, Emic Saber Invoker. This card's been banned for a while. Yeah, Jesus Christ, it has been banned for a while. This card's been banned for a while. It's at 1 in the OCG. I think it's at 1 in Master Duel as well, which I do want to go ahead and check because I want to put my foot in my mouth. But I actually forgot what this card has been in the first place because I remember I was playing it when I was playing my janky 6 Samurai deck from like 2018, I think. Yeah, it was like it was like during Spirit Warriors when I was playing 6 Samurai, True King 6 Samurai. Goofiest deck, one of the goofiest decks I've ever played. Emic Saber Invoker. But there was a I cannot spell. Here it is, Emic Saber Invoker. Why were you hit again? Alright. Yeah, because it was what, 2 level 3s? Yeah, it was just a very generic, very powerful generic card that summoned out Earth Warriors. And honestly, I can definitely see this coming back to 1. Like, I don't really know why. I think it could just come back. I'm not sure why it was banned. It was banned in 2018. So yeah, it's been a while. Oh yeah, I was checking if it was banned in MD. Get distracted. Let's see. MX Saber Invoker. Limited. I don't know. It's been an MD. But yeah, it's just limited, and I feel like it can come back. I really do feel like it can come back. Its power, it has a good effect, but I feel like it's just like whatever at this point. I mean, we got Terratop back. It's doing nothing. It's just one of those cards like where I feel like it's just inconsequential. It doesn't really do much to where I'm just like worried about this. Um, Going next, I definitely feel like okay. I know this can't happen. Kid Kalos coming to one would be hilarious. But I don't think Kid Kalos will come back to one. Not yet, at least. I feel like in the future it can. If they ever decide to limit Pelorino, if they limit Pelorino, limits Tear Cash, I can see this card coming back. Maybe even limiting Rhino Heart too, but I don't know if like Konami's could even mess with tier limits anytime soon. Because I mean, the last thing we lost was thing. Was the thing. The last thing we lost was Hellback and Hagito. It makes me sad. It makes me very sad to know that this card is banned. But you know, it is what it is. This card right here, Dimension Barrier. I have been hearing people saying like get rid of it in some capacity. But I mean, I don't know if I really care too much about this card to where it's like, oh, we have to get ban it. I'm like, this is like whatever. I feel like this is gonna remain unchanged. Um, this card is still limited, and we're gonna keep it that way. I know some people is like, oh, dinos aren't that great, blah blah blah. But it's like, yeah. But the thing about it, any card that we're trying to cut back on cards that say you can't interact with your opponent. That's not healthy. And dinos just become a very degenerate combo deck. And I'm like, I'm not here for it. It's just not fun to deal with. It's just awful. Um, Call by. I've heard people say like, call by should come back from limited to two, and I disagree with this. Honestly, personally, I think this should be banned 100%. I even have an excuse here. I don't care. I personally think call by should be banned, but it's fine at one. But anything more than one is like no. I know people's like, oh, but it helps rogue decks, and I kind of hate that argument. Where it's like it helps X decks, but as you do realize that this doesn't prevent more powerful decks from playing it. I remember a time where we had 3 call by the Graves. Do you know how frustrating that card is to play at multiples? Because it's like it's a non-once per turn. You can activate multiple. So it's like, oh, Veiler, call by, oh, Ash, call by. And it's like, yeah, it turns it off for you for the other turn, but it's just like I just insulated my entire play. I don't care anymore. You can't Ash me, you can't Veiler me. It's like you can't droll me. It's like it's just too good of a card. It's just too good of a card. I don't think it should go anything above. The only thing, anything above 1, if it's ever going to change, it should go to 0. Speaking of cards that are still weirdly limited, Magic Spectre Kieran. Personally, semi. Honestly, I'll go to unlimited, send it to unlimited status, but you know how Konami works, the quarantine area. Kieran just goes to 2. It doesn't do anything that's so oppressive anymore. This is no longer 16 Yu-Gi-Oh, where you're having we have a busted pendulum. We have a busted pendulum mechanic where you soul charge for like 5 every turn. This card constantly coming back. Even if you can beat over a battle, if you can't kill your opponent, you're gonna deal with it again. It's gonna start spinning your stuff again. It doesn't matter. This card does not matter anymore. It's a strong card, sort of, but like we have just too many ways of outing it to where it's just like whatever. This doesn't matter anymore. It really doesn't. It's a card that I feel like they can safely go to 2 without warning about anything. So the next thing, Infernity Launcher. I'm not very threatened about Infernity at all. Like I don't think I remember like people were saying like, oh my god, Infernity. If this comes back, Infernity is super good. I'm like it's a super fragile combo deck, and we see how we have dealt with super fragile combo decks over and over and over and over again. And the thing about this deck is also kind of a brick fest too. So it's like it requires you to have no cards in your hand. People stop cheating and it stop trying to turn your infinities into into artifacts. But this card is just like it's like cool. It's fine. Um, but I don't really don't see a reason of hitting it or doing anything or on keeping it at one. I think it can easily safely come back to two, which I'm just double checking it's not at two right now because I know that what Infinity Launcher. Yeah, because I know Archfiend came back. Yeah, here it is, Infinity Launcher. Yeah, it is literally. Yeah, it's still limited, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, it's still limited. Why are you limited still? I just want to make sure I'm not crazy and like this card is still limited, right? Like I don't remember them ever like semi-limiting this. Projector. Yeah, it was on the September 2010 list. Oh my god. Trying to search for things sometimes get mad annoying. Yeah, and it's currently unlimited in the OCG too. So why? I really don't know why you even had this at one for so long. It feels kind of silly to keep this at one. It's just like whatever. Honestly, I think this card should come back. It doesn't really do anything. It's not scary. I'm not worried about it. Yep, we should just go ahead and just honestly unlimited this card, but it's whatever. Um, let's see. Was there other card I wanted to take a look at? Oh yes, this Naturia's Sacred Tree. This was such a stupid hit in my opinion. The first time it got hit, while I didn't care much for runic for the runic version for the runic Naturia deck, I just think it's stupid. I personally just think this is dumb. This should never had really been hit. I don't think this should have been hit. But then now it's just like okay, yep, Infinity Launcher is limited. Yeah, it's limited, which is stupid. This card's still limited. I don't know why it's still limited. Why it remain being limited after the limit happened, especially now with the runic stuff going away. With we don't have no longer have Keldo, Kelbeck. We don't have the Milders. We don't have the Millers anymore. So it's like, well, what is the point of this? Why is this still at one? Just gonna go back to two. Inconsequentially, no problem. Phantom Skyblaster, same thing. This was put to one years ago. No one's playing this. This is a normal summon. You have every deck just does so much. It just does so much. It's like I don't think most decks are gonna be looking at this like, oh wow, I really want to play Phantom Skyblaster. It's like not really. You have too many engines, too many powerful cards that just does so much. Like this does not need to do anything. This is just kind of a worthless limit. Um, Speaking of this, I almost forgot about you. Summon Source I think can come back. She can come back to one now just because she had the errata. She's in one of the OCG. I feel like that she's gonna come back. I don't think she's really gonna do too much, and if she does, we just reban her. But I don't think she's gonna do too much with the new errata, because it does lock you a little bit. It's no longer stupid as what it was. Still an easy to make link 3, but I really don't think that's like as it's no longer as potent as it was, especially with it being you know being toned down a little bit, which I'm happy for. Airlifter should go to 2, I personally believe. While I don't like Rescue Ace too much, I don't really see a need of this keeping this at 1 anymore. Um, Strong card, good card. Rescue is still a pretty decent deck, but its representation has gone down considerably just due to Snake Eyes. I still feel like it has like very strong strengths, but I can see this card either being no changed or going to back to 2. Throw those guys a bone. But I really don't think that I really barely have seen Rescue Ace outside of like just very recently with the release of Fiendsmith. But I think this card can come back to 2 and then not make too much of it without breaking anything. Next up, Cypher and Gamma. This is kind of an interesting thing as once again, anti-hand trap, anti-monster, very powerful hand trap. I don't really agree with it going to. I never really agreed with it going to 1 because it was one of the few ways you could stop Shifter. Um, with Shifter at 1, I feel like just having just another powerful hand trap with some of like the more powerful cards and the hand trap attack kind of go to 1 or is at 1. I feel like we could have Gamma. Gamma still requires you to play a brick, and Gamma becomes a brick. But in light decks, light and dark decks, you can definitely do a few things with it. I like this card a lot. I do like Gamma a lot. I wasn't really thrilled on it going to 1. I hate that, but I can see it still staying at 1 though, just because Konami probably just don't want this card just to be like teched into every deck again. Because at one point it really was like Lab was playing it, every deck was playing, any deck that could play it was playing it. Um, I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. Personally, I would like it at 2, but I don't think it's going anywhere. Going to here, Ostinato, no change. Like Melodious, Ludi's shown up and it just disappeared immediately. I'm like, where the hell did this deck go? And it was just like, it also is a very powerful card, but I don't think Melodious is in such a position to where it's like, oh god, this is so powerful, I have to be afraid. Strong, but nothing crazy. Leading us to our next Corinthian Princess. I know I'm going in any order, but as much as this card should be banned, it's not going to happen. It's getting reprinted. It's staying the same. It's very strong generic Link 3, by the way. Very powerful card. Very, very, very powerful card. But I don't think it's going anywhere. It's not going anywhere anytime soon, in my opinion. It's just strong. Very good Link 3. Monster Reborn for fire types. Great card. Not going anywhere. Not yet, but I do think it is possibly very ban worthy. Transaction stays at 3. This, however, I can possibly see that Game of Light hits the wanted engine. Blackwood stays at 3. This goes to 2. This might eventually get limited. Same thing with OSS, which I think will stay the same. So this, I can see it get limited because it's Chaos Space, which is limited. Stupidly, of course, but this is also a quick play. Black Witch is a very strong card. Just being able to discard whatever. This gets you this help nets you a free draw. Same thing with this right here. But OSS is only played in a single. This is played at 3. So I can definitely see this going down to 2-1. But right now it's getting a reprint, so I don't think they're going to limit it. Now that being said, they've done it before for Bystials, specifically Back to Mutt. But I don't think this is not going anywhere. Access code not going anywhere. Armageddonite. I think goes back to 3. I think Arma goes back to 3 pretty easily. This card doesn't really do anymore. It's strong, but then it's just like, what do you do off the normal summon? And a lot of cards that were adjacent to it that caused it to be a problem are no longer around. It really isn't. They're no longer around, and I really don't see a point of keeping this. This is already at 2. I don't remember the last time I actually seen Armageddonite being played. It's just like whatever. Lightning Storm, I think come back to 3. It was weird. This one was weird to me when they semi-limited it. It was just like, oh yeah, by the way, we need a semi-limited Lightning Storm. It's just like, why? It's like, why are we semi-limiting Lightning Storm for? And it's just like, is it because you just made it cheap? Is it? I cannot tell you why they wanted to limit it. Or semi-limited. I'm sorry. It's just a card I just don't really care for. I don't really care for it to be anything for it to be semi-limited. It's just taking up space. We can come back to 3. It'll be fine. Droll. I know this card has always been a point of contention because there's like lingering floodgates. However, I do feel like we need Droll. Actually, I don't even feel like, I know we need Droll. Droll is one of those cards that we need because it's just strong. It's strong. Decks can play through Droll. Like, there's been plenty of times where, like, even with Vanadium, I've been able to play through Droll and OTK my opponent just because, like, I have proper setup and because, like, I didn't care too much for drawing cards. But Droll kind of needs to stick around. It's not my favorite thing, but unfortunately, you have a lot of decks that do a lot of stupid things, and they just stick around for too long. And then you're just like, okay, we have to find a way to stop this. Droll is definitely best, especially from some of the more degenerate combo decks. We got a Droll. It's one of those cards where I'm not big. I'm not big on lingering floodgates, but we kind of have to do some. But we kind of have to have this one at least to stop some of the more degenerate things from happening. Maxi, keep this thing banned. I hate this card so much. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Playing Master Duel is a chore sometimes because like my opponent just sits there, they drop Maxi on me, and it's just like, well, either I'm gonna have to play through, or I'm playing a deck that can play underneath Maxi. But this card is just toxic, especially when now that we have Molcharmy Perulia, as well as the new Molcharmy coming out in Raging of the Abyss. Um, that's pretty much like almost exactly like Max C, just like a slightly weaker Max C. Like we don't need to have, which which everyone's jokingly call Max 3 in the OCG, but this card definitely stays out of. I don't know why Ash Blossom was in this list. Neither I don't know why this was here too, or this never comes back. Branded Fusion. Now this one is interesting because with Sanctifier being banned, I wouldn't mind seeing Branded Fusion be limited. I know it's a little bit weird to say that, but Branded Fusion is one of those cards where it's just like it is the identity of the deck. It is the whole backbone, structure, rib cage of Branded. This card resolves, and there is a high chance that you are losing against Branded at that moment in time. It is such a strong deck. It is ridiculous. This card does too much, in my opinion, because once again, Shaddoll Fusion, it's Shaddoll Fusion 2.0 with the stipulation like, oh, you can't do anything but Fusion Summon when using this card, which is like, oh no, how I have to Fusion Summon in my Fusion Summon deck? Ooh. Personally speaking, I would like to see this card limited to 1. It's such a good card. Like, the fact that Branded has just never been hit have never been hit realistically took an actual hit on the ban list during its 2-year run of just being one of a deck that just keeps coming back over and over and over again. Card's too strong. I think the card's really strong, especially when you limit and hit everything else. Like Branded, like once again, it's like you'd have Branded, you have to play D-Bear, you have to play something to prevent them, you have to play Ash Blossom. It's just such a good card. I don't like this card being at 3. I know it's probably going to stay at 3 because Konami TCG absolutely loves Branded. But I don't like it. I really don't like this type of card design. It's just kind of too powerful. It's kind of like this whole thing with Mathmech Circular, where it's just like Circular just being a monster, just being such a concentrated deck that does everything, or it's a concentrated card that does everything for its deck, which is why I'm pretty sure it's going to stay banned, at least for the time being. But Branded Fusion, I'm probably going to say the same, but I definitely think eventually it deserves a limit. The Dragon Rulers. Just unlimit these things. It's not 2013 anymore. Why are these, like, the fact that they took so long to peel them off the list is baffling to me. This was baffling. It's so stupid. It's like they don't do anything. Each of their effects can only be used once per turn, and you have to choose which effect you want to use for them because you can't activate both their effects in the same turn. And it's just like they're very this standard where we get cards like Poplar that special summons itself after being searched. Snake Eye Ash was just one of those ludicrous one-card combos we've had. We have Terror Format. We had, the Kashtira, a Rise Heart. We had so much. These cards, they're safe. They're fine. Like, they don't do much anymore. They're not super strong. We need to stop messing around. I know they're probably gonna get semi-limited first and then limited eventually, but it's like that's kind of a waste of time. Just unlimited them. We don't need the suspense. The virus cards. Personally, I would like this Eradicator to be just banned altogether, but I know Konami is just not going to do it. It should have been banned a long time ago. It should have been banned because it's one of those cards that keeps showing up again and again and again and again. Kind of like Abyss Dweller. Exactly like Abyss Dweller. We just keep showing up and it's like, and now everyone's like, it's fine. It's like, it's not fine. It's just waiting. It's a time bomb. It's a time bomb card. It's like these cards, when they're explosive, they are explosive, and you will just get absolutely mollywopped by it. I don't like it. It's just one of those cards what I do not like. Next up, Ava, keep this thing banned. Once again, it's a very strong card. Granted, I know like Drytron is not doing jack of anything anymore. That's okay with me. I'm sorry, Drytron players who still play Drytron, but your deck is hella degenerate. It's just like it generates does something but degenerate bodies, summon Herald, and then negate all your crap. Granted, we have where more things, a lot of things were more accessible, but I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I just don't like it. We can keep that banned. Cyber Angel Ben 10 is at 3. Drytron's not doing too much, but we don't need to add fuel to the fire there. We don't need another way for them to get recursion for Heralds. We can keep this banned. I don't know what drop level was here. This card's fine. This card's fine. So the last 3 cards, Instant Fusion, Seals, Fenrir. So thinking about it, I know there's a lot of people. Not a lot of people. There are people who have mentioned like they want to see Seals banned. And all I could think to myself is just like, you people are a bunch of crackheads. First off, Seals can. I know people's like, oh, but Tenpai plays Seals, therefore we must hurt Seals. It's like, yes, I understand. Quackimero Drago is a card, but it's just like banning Seals is by far the silliest thing you can do. This is the only thing Tenpai does going first, besides sometimes dropping Shifter or Heat Wave occasionally, which they don't even do that much anymore. I don't see Seals getting hit. Seals is a very good card. But as a Dragon Link player, I don't want to see this get hit anymore. But I'm sorry, but we don't need to have this anymore. This card needs to be banned. It's so stupid. It's limited. I feel like it could be banned sometime soon. If they ever bring back Kikalis ever have this has to be immediately banned. Like you cannot keep that around Kikalis around. That is insane. That's insanity. I feel like it's gonna stay the same. It's gonna stay limited. It's not going anywhere. I don't think anytime soon until another new like level 5 fusion monster that does something out of the extra comes around, then it gets banned for sure. I don't see a reason why this needs to stay around. Cash Tier Fenrir. Now this card is interesting. This card has remained at 3 since its debut in Darkwing. In Darkwing Blast. It has proven itself as one of the more versatile cards. You know what? Come to think of it, I did forget a few cards here, which I'll talk about later. But this card, strong card. I like it. I definitely do like it. It's a very fun card to use. Very versatile. Could do a lot. In simplified game states, this card's actually nuts. But does it need to go anywhere? Is my question. I know some people like at most like maybe semi-limited, but I actually feel fine with this at 3. I actually like at one point I would have said like this needs to go to like 1, but I don't think it needs to anymore. I personally don't think it needs to anymore. Strong card, but hey, it is what it is. And then some final thoughts that I have on here that I have some cards I forgot to add, so I'll go ahead and just kind of discuss them too. Some cards I wouldn't mind seeing coming back. So this one is a little bit controversial, but I wouldn't mind seeing Savage come back. Now I know some people are gonna be like, "Oh my God, Savage," but they just banned it. It's like, yeah, I understand why they banned it, but I don't think compared to Baron, this card is definitely the fairer of the two. It's been around longer, but I don't think Savage should have been banned in the first place. I personally do not think Savage should have been banned in the first place. It's harder to set up Savage than it is Baron. Baron has always been a problem since it came out in 2021. It was just always a problem. Let's be real here. I personally think that Savage can come back and it not affect things too bad. That's just my personal opinion. I never agreed with the ban in the first place. Baron, I 100% agreed with. I played that card to all hell. This card, I don't really agree too much with this one. This one is like, it's a lot less egregious as well as less offensive compared to what Baron does. Another card that I definitely forgot to put in here, Chaos. Oops. Space. Chaos Space. Why the hell? The fact that this was limited in the first place made me mad because it was right after Dragon Link Just Won Worlds, and you know how the Worlds thing, unless your name is Blue Eyes White Dragon, this was just like the hit it took, and it's just like, why did you get hit? And it's unlimited. I know I don't really care too much about like directly comparing OCG and TCG, but this being limited in the TCG makes no sense to me. I personally don't think that this should have been limited in the first place. Maybe semi-limited, but being limited, God, this was so stupid. This was a stupid hit. It was just such a because they hit Magnum on the same list as this, and it was a Chaos Space. And like, why did you hit Chaos Space? It's so dumb. Personally, I can see it coming back. It's a really inoffensive card. It just helps Dragon Link. Please, Konami, I beg of you, just get this card back to two. Um, and yeah, I personally think that this possibly could be like what our ban list may look like. This could be what the final result of it could be. I definitely hope that there's something significant that does happen here because the last ban list addressed some things, but it left the fire stuff very much alive, and not just alive, but still remaining the best deck. There are a few cards I did kind of brain fart about because I almost forgot about you, Bell. But let me actually pull up. I know for you, Bell, there wasn't a whole lot that we could do for that one. Not yet, at least, because it's pretty much Bricky or Snake Eyes. Let's be real here. But summoning the Spirit Gates, I think goes to one. I personally think that card needs to go to one to at least make the Yubel a little less inconsistent. Turn down the power level because I did touch Tenpai, I did touch Runic, but Spirit Gates because besides that I'm not too sure what to hit Yubel where it just doesn't murder the deck, and I don't really want to murder a deck like that. I think it's interesting, annoying, interesting though, but it shouldn't be. I've also seen people suggest banning Yama as well, which would be really interesting on Jane fans. I'm sorry, but we'll have to see where that one goes. But I feel like there needs to be a big, big change for the Yu-Gi-Oh meta. There has to be a change to where like we can start getting back and actually playing Yu-Gi-Oh again, and it not because I'll be perfectly honest, I'm not. I like Snake Eyes, but the fact that it's such a concentrated deck, it's so powerful that every other deck has to play things like the Puppet Lock, or things like Calamities, or things just that are just so degenerate that you just don't want to play the game, and it's kind of part of why I step back from the game for a little bit. It has something has to give. Something definitely has to give, and I would love to see like something similar in this vein where some of the more powerful, egregious, demented cards just get limited, banned, get them out of here. But this is definitely kind of what I want to see. But guys, let me know your thoughts. Thank you for chilling with me today, and you guys take care and have a wonderful day. Like and subscribe, and peace.